So the question is it fair to kick college students out for not adhering to social distancing guidelines? So a key aspect of this question is necessarily in what manner does social distancing take place? The problem is medical authorities have differed on the proper practices of social distancing over the past few months of this coronavirus pandemic. For example, the CDC's long held position, which it still believes, is that 6 feet is the proper length of distance that one is supposed to be away from someone else. However, in August, the New York Times reported that a research team from the University of Florida recovered traces of COVID-19 from infected patients as far as up to 16 feet away from their actual position. And the response of the expert class to this matter? Well, we don't know if they were dangerous. Please give me and every other anxiety-addled, stressed out college student a break, a reprieve from this ignorance. Even at my school, despite the fact that there have been revelations about the proper distancing, not necessarily being 6 feet and possibly being able to contract the virus up to 12 or 16 feet, they still say 6 feet. I do not mind us using the data that we have at our disposal to protect people, but how can you hold me or any other college student accountable if we do not know exactly how to protect ourselves, or if the authorities themselves do not know how we can protect ourselves? The solution here is simple. Instead of kicking us out and possibly sending us who are asymptomatic, because we are young and we don't necessarily get affected by the virus as much as other people, back to homes with folks who may be older or immunocompromised, work with us, help us, counsel us, continually counsel us, make sure that we are being as safe as possible, but do not kick us out, interrupt our educational careers, and then perhaps cause us to go and spread the virus to other areas of the country. Any other profession that acted with such negligence would be held accountable immediately in court. They would be absolutely destroyed. Treat us with the same level of respect.
Students should certainly be held accountable by universities for gathering in large groups and contributing to the spreading the coronavirus even further. It is risky enough as it is trying to have some semblance of a normal year, and for people to engage in behavior which shows absolutely no respect for the health and safety of others is absolutely inexcusable. What is already a hard situation is made even more difficult by people who should be old enough to know right from wrong. It's debatable whether anyone should be back at campus at all, and to completely make no effort to be responsible with distancing and not having huge crowded gatherings is beyond the pale. Those who would so willfully ignore rules set in place for their own selfish reasons are putting themselves and anyone else at risk in the process. If this behavior continues unabated, the outbreaks that are caused may make it impossible to reasonably continue on with the plans many schools have put in place in any capacity whatsoever. This is a land of liberty, but it's also a land of personal responsibility, of which there should be consequences when none is taken by those in a position of privilege.
Hello and welcome back to another Millennial Minute. Today's issue: colleges are kicking out students for defying social distancing rules. You've already heard from our guests, Christian Watson, host of the Pensive Politics podcast. That's a mouthful, Christian. And AJ Bruno, a media strategist. So, did schools really expect students to stop partying and hanging out in groups? Christian, you're a college student. Tell us about this.
Yeah, and so I'm not entirely sure how other schools are handling this. I do know that several schools have actually completely and utterly shut down because they've gotten a lot of cases coming in. But at my school, at least, they are expecting, not only are they expecting us not to gather, they are quite literally, from what I understand, sending out the university police downtown to round up students who may be gathering in groups. And so the question becomes, do they expect us not to socialize? Do they expect us not to really interact in the college setting? What do they expect us to do? We can be safe, you can socialize theoretically, but a lot of these schools, at least my school, are not. They don't necessarily recognize that the two can be symbiotic.
So AJ, you don't think this is a bit too harsh? I mean, we are social beings. When I see a person, I typically walk towards them when there's not a pandemic and shake their hand. Does it go against human nature to ask, especially college students, to stay away from each other?
Well, there's socialization, then there's just being stupid. So if we're talking about small groups of people gathering in a responsible way, that's one thing. But I've seen the videos, I've seen the pictures. A lot of these schools, you have hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people in close proximity, no one making any attempt to social distance, and frankly, just being dumb. So I think if you're putting people's lives in danger for no reason other than, you want to have a good time or whatever, I don't think that's a good excuse. I mean, if we're talking about an extreme circumstance where someone is being railroaded for maybe a reason they shouldn't be. That's one thing, but I've seen some of these videos, like I said, and a lot of these people are being very dumb.
So, Christian, the famous case that inspired this segment, though, was 11 college students in Boston that were in a hotel in downtown Boston, ended up together, and they just got kicked out without a tuition refund. And as we all know, college is very expensive in the United States. Was that fair, or did that seem kind of extreme? Allegedly, of course, they did tell the students that they would do this, and they went ahead and did it. But it seems like a lot, doesn't it?
Of course it does. So again, we have to, risk calculation is the number one way that we can decide if something is going to be detrimental or not. 11 college students gathering in a hotel is not a smart idea during a pandemic. I would never do it, although I'm not a partier in the first place, but I would never do it. However, I think that, again, college is a social time, and college students, given that they have historic levels of depression and anxiety, and this pandemic has statistically affected that, I think that it is more than reasonable for universities to give college students the leeway to hang out and socialize and whatever. And 11 is not even that big. It's rather sizable, but it's not that big. So a solution would have simply been, okay, you're going to go out downtown, you're going to hang out. When you come back to campus, if you want to be admitted back to our campus, we'll have you do a mandatory test. That's very simple. And they don't have to necessarily take them out. They don't have to lose their educational experience. They don't have to be taken back to wherever they were before and to possibly spread the virus if they have it. It is a very simple compromise that could save a lot of people's mental sanity. But this extremism is not going to go away.
AJ, should campuses have just stayed closed? Like, this sounds too complicated. I mean, a lot of these rules don't make any sense anyway, but especially as it pertains to thinking back to my freshman year of college, there's no way I would have self-isolated. You know, I want to talk to my roommate. I want to talk to my neighbors. I went to college in Florida. We go to the pool. We go to the beach. Is it really realistic to expect students to social distance, or is it a better idea to just have all the campuses shut for the time being?
I mean, the whole situation is insane. It's like something out of the Twilight Zone to begin with. So I see your point. People want to have some semblance of a normal schedule and I guess not be doing everything digitally. But I mean, if this is a situation we have where, the instance he mentioned, that sounds like an extreme case. But if they're not going to listen, I don't see how you do it in person. It would be nice to think you could, but if it's no way to find a middle ground, which it doesn't seem like there is, then it's probably a bad idea to continue to go on with this in person. It sucks. It's awful. It disrupts everything. But I mean, what else can you do? Because it's going to be the way it is. And like you said, people don't want to just completely isolate like that. That's not any fun.
So, Christian, to end this, do you feel like you were talking about cops chasing people down there in Georgia, downtown, and students or whatever? Do you feel like this is a slippery slope and also selective enforcement, et cetera? All these are very problematic, right? Because you could end up expelling one student who violated or committed an infraction once and keeping someone else who violated it, the rules a million times. So do you worry about the slippery slope?
Oh, so certainly. So I think that if you don't have a coherent system, a coherent rule system around how you're going to handle students who may be disruptive or maybe they think is dangerous, then you have an issue. You have a serious issue of consistency here. So I think that the biggest thing that universities can simply do is exhort their students to be as safe as possible, but recognize that during this pandemic, a lot of folks have been isolated. A lot of folks have been depressed. A lot of folks have had their sort of humanity almost arrested beneath this fear and this chaos. And the last thing we need to do is stoke that fear and that chaos by just policing how people live their lives after they've gotten out of this sort of isolation period that we've been in for a very long time. I am very worried about the slippery slope. Absolutely.
Well, thank you both, gentlemen. This is a really difficult topic to unpack, but I appreciate both of you weighing in on this.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. Stay safe out there and have a great day.